Okay. So I've been doing some more research because they've made some changes to the OGT. Last week I was trying to show some calculator skills, but the calculator broke, which is actually a good thing because I don't think they're going to be using that calculator anymore. I'm pretty sure they're using this new calculator that I have up here on the right side. Let me full screen it. It's called Desmos Online Calculator, and you can actually practice with it before you go to take the test because it's online. I'll send that link out later today after I upload the YouTube video. So it's good to know how to use this beforehand because it's hard to get used to a calculator if you've never used it before and be expected to use it on the test. So I have this problem up. 4 numbers are shown. 42 fifths, square root of 68, 8.91, 7 3/14. And this is a mixed number. I wrote it by hand, so it's kind of hard to see. And it says to put the numbers in order from least to greatest.
And I have no clue.
Okay, so when you want to do this, it's best to use the calculator. As they're written, I have no clue either. I have no idea what's least, what's greatest as they're written. But if we can change them all to decimals, that makes it a lot easier. So on this online calculator, it does a lot of graphing as well, but it can do basic calculations like this. So 42 fifths, the fraction bar is actually division. You're going to use the division button, and that actually makes the fraction bar. So you go down here, you can use a mouse, or I could click in the box and just use like the keyboard and type 42. But you have 42, and then you hit the divide button, and you'll notice it makes a fraction. So you put the 5 underneath to make 42 fifths, and then the answer pops up right here, equals 8.4. So the nice thing about this calculator is you don't have to erase this. You could click on a bar underneath, and it creates a second thing, and now we have to type in the next one. So square root of 68. The square root button looks like a check mark button down here. So square root 68, and then you hit, actually you don't have to hit equals, it automatically again pops it up, and you see the decimal automatically here, 8.24. This one's super long, you don't have to write the whole thing, but I'm gonna take 2 since this next decimal also has 2. So with what we have so far, before we even get to the next one, which of these is the lowest?
Looks like the 8.24.
Mm-hmm. Decimals are a little easier to put in order than just all these different expressions up there. So if you look at the first number after the decimal, right now 2 is the lowest.
I just guessed. I figured it was because of the 2, so.
Yep. So your guess was actually using some knowledge. That's what we look at. We look at that number right after the decimal. The smallest of those is the smallest decimal. The last one is a mixed fraction. So this you have to be a little careful when you type it in. So the big number is the 7. And you type that in separately from the 3/14. We don't just type in 7 3/14. The calculator doesn't recognize that. So we have to know that when we type it in, we actually type 7 plus 3 divided by 14. Which is 7.21. So now, when we put this in order, now what's the smallest?
It would be the 7.21.
7.21 is the smallest.
And you go 8.24. And then 8.4. And 8.91.
Good. So these problems, it's always best to get it in that decimal format first and then put them in order. Now, they're not going to actually write the answer that way. You do have to then go back and say, okay, 7.21, that was 7 3/14. 8.24, that was square root of 68. 8.4, that was the 42/5. And the 8.91 was already there. So you do have to know, well, which one corresponds to what so that you can still put them in the correct order. So again, you'll want to practice with this online calculator. I'll be sending the link out. You can download a version of it actually as an app on your phone. It's this Desmos calculator. But it's good to get familiar with it before taking the test. And you'll notice I just started automatically. If you want to get rid of stuff, you hit X, and that'll get rid of what you typed in. So here's another one where you're not going to need the calculator a whole lot, but you'll need it here and there. Joel has a 50-meter roll of copper wire that weighs 7.5 kilograms. So those kind of go together. 50-meter roll and the 7.5 kilograms, those were related to each other. Because it's 50 meters, it weighed that amount. Then it says approximately how many meters of wire will be in a new shipment that weighs 502.5 kilograms.
So would this be one of them fraction problems where you have to put like an X or a Y over top?
Yes, that is exactly it. So this is a proportion problem.
Okay,
So
I
when,
didn't think of the name.
that's fine. As long as you can do it, we don't really care what the name is.
Okay.
So you knew exactly what it was. You don't have to know it's called proportions because you know I got to set up the two sets of fractions. So the first fraction is going to be that first set of related information. It's always got to be related. So the 50-meter roll
Will be on top, and then your kilograms is on the bottom on both sides.
Think kg for kilograms. And then the other kilograms also goes on the bottom. That does have to match up as well. We do not put that on top because those kilograms have to match up on the bottom.
Right.
These proportions are all about how do they relate to each other. This whole side is related because that roll of wire was that weight. This other side will be related, but then you also have to relate top to top, bottom to bottom. So then the blank spot is what we're trying to find. So what do we put in the blank spot?
M.
M for meters, X.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter what variable. Any variable will do. So then how do we solve a proportion? I'm already.
Looks like division.
Division.
So you have to reduce first, don't you?
Reducing won't necessarily help you. You could reduce, but it's really hard to reduce a fraction that has a decimal.
Right.
Let me get rid of some of this extra stuff. The M here. So the easiest way to solve a proportion is to cross multiply.
Oh yeah, cross multiply.
You do bottom towards top of the other side. So the 50 times the 502.5. And the 7.5 times the variable M. So this is where a calculator comes into play. We don't know what 50 times 502.5 is. So we type it in. Notice that the multiply is the dot. They're not going to use the X multiply. It'll be the dot multiply. And then our answer is down in the corner again. So we multiplied in the one direction. Now we have to do opposites. So this is 7.5 times the m. So we've got to divide by the 7.5 to get rid of it and move it to the other side. So now we type in our new problem, 25,125 divided by 7.5. Oops. And I should not have hit the equals. So notice when I typed in the equals button, it kept it on the bottom of the fraction and it screwed everything up. Your calculator will show this little, you need something on both sides of the equal. It'll kind of give you instructions. You can erase it. If you had other stuff to type in, you'd have to click to the right so that you weren't at the bottom of the fraction anymore. And so that helps us find that final answer of 3,350 meters. So, and as we've been working, you probably also noticed on the calculator that the keypad keeps kind of minimizing itself. In the bottom left-hand corner, if you ever need to bring up the keypad and it's not coming up, you can click on it to show all the things you can type in on this calculator. Okay, so this one, the bar graph shows the number of customers in Rio's restaurant each day last week. It gives us the bar graph. What is the approximate mean number of customers per day in Rio's restaurant last week? So when we say mean, what does the word mean?
Average.
Average. Asking us to find the average, which is add them all together, divide by how many there are. With a bar graph, we've got to know how can I read this in order to figure out how much I have each day. So like for Sunday, how many customers came in on Sunday?
Well, it says, you said Sunday, 800, a little over 800.
A little over 800. So since we have to put something in, let's say 820. And then we have to do this for each day. So like Monday,
350.
350.
Because that's half.
Yep.
400. And then you got looks like 350 again.
Yep, thereabouts.
I'd say about 298 maybe.
298. I would even go maybe a little lower. I'd say probably closer to like 290.
Okay, that's close to 300. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's close to 300, but a little below. How about Friday?
I'd say about 402, maybe 403.
And how about Saturday?
890, maybe.
Okay. So since we're estimating, the answer we get may not match these answers exactly. Sorry, I ran out of room, so it's not showing the answer choices completely, but might not match exactly, but it'll be pretty close. So we type in, we have 820 plus 350, and I'm just using the keyboard because it's a little quicker than clicking. Plus 400, plus 350. Notice each time it'll give you the answer until you hit the plus sign again, and then it's like, oh, it's awaiting further instruction. So 3503, and then how much do we divide that by?
7.
7. There's 7 of them. So that's about 500, and we're pretty darn close. There's one answer that's about 500. And usually on one like that, where people could pick different values, you know, you said this one looked like 298. Even if we had typed, even if we typed 298 instead of 290, you're going to be close enough. So 3511. So notice another feature of the calculator is instead of retyping everything, I just went and clicked on what I wanted to change and backspaced and typed in the new information. So now it's 501, but that's still close enough.
Yeah.
So if you want to get super fancy, this calculator actually has some super fancy features. This button that says functions pops up a new menu. And there's a menu called stats for statistics that actually has a mean button. I better click on a new level though. So you can actually let the calculator calculate the mean for you. If you type these in with commas between each number, 298, 403, and 890, it will automatically calculate that number for you. You don't have to worry about what am I going to divide by. So the advantage of this calculator is it can have some fancier features that make some of the stuff easier. If you just type it in with commas, it calculates the mean instead of you having to add them together and figure out what to divide by. Okay. So again, I've picked a lot of questions to focus on how do we use this calculator since it's a new calculator. Like I said, they've been making a lot of changes to the OGT recently, so trying to get used to all those different changes. So what is the value of the expression n squared minus w squared divided by q if n equals 1/3, q equals -6, sorry, w equals -6, and q equals 2/3? So this one looks like a lot of work, but it's mostly going to be, how do I plug this into the calculator? So the letter n, what number should we put instead of the letter n?
2 maybe?
They tell you a number in the sentence. You have to go with the information they gave you. They literally said n is this. So that's the number we've got to plug in. What do they tell you the letter n is?
1/3.
1/3. So instead of n, we're going to type 1/3 squared. And Kelly, if you want to answer any of these questions, you would just unmute yourself and answer. You're more than welcome to, or you could type a chat message if you want to answer that way. More than welcome to answer these questions too.
Okay, I'm just paying attention to the calculator.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I just want to make sure you felt comfortable doing that if you wanted to.
Okay.
Okay, so what do we plug in for W?
-6.
-6. They gave us that number, -6. And then what do we plug in for Q?
2/3.
2/3. So this looks pretty nasty to type in, and it is a little more difficult, kind of weird to type in. So you'll notice every time I replaced a letter, I put parentheses around the number that I replaced. And that's actually what we want to do in the calculator as well. Let me get rid of this. So the functions button, when I brought it up, I clicked on functions. If I want it to go away so it's not in the way anymore, I click the function buttons again. So to type this in, we're going to do parentheses. Remember, all fractions are really division bars. So we do parentheses 1 divided by 3. And you'll notice I am in parentheses now. You have to either click to the right so that you're outside of the parenthesis, or you can literally with your mouse just click wherever you want. But we want to be outside for that squared. The squared, there's this A squared button down here that you can click, and it automatically makes something squared. Minus, so then we have -6 squared. When you type in fractions, we start with the top of the fraction. So parenthesis, -6 end parenthesis, squared. Now we have a fraction over a fraction. So we hit divide, and it makes it that fraction. And as long as we include the parentheses, we're still going to end up with this second fraction on the bottom. 2 divided by 3, end parenthesis. So it looks really nasty, but if you type it in exactly as it's written, it'll just pop out the answer for you. Now it does always type the answer as a decimal, but when you're comparing, because they're all as fractions, if you compare that front part first, that often makes it so you can figure out the answer right away. What's the only answer with the same matching front part?
Looks like A.
Answer choice A is the only one with a negative 53.
Yeah.
Even though we're not sure if that decimal matches the 8/9, we know it has to be this answer. Now, what if there were 2? What if answer choice B, instead of negative 23 8/9, it said negative 53 7/9?
That would have been wrong because there's 8 and a 9 in the answer problem.
So that's kind of a random
Guess.
coincidence.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen that way. What you would want to do is actually type the 2 answer choices in and see if they match. With a mixed number, we have to do that. Negative 53 plus, oh yeah, this one's even more confusing. Don't use the negative sign. With mixed numbers, just do the 53 plus 8/9. Ignore that negative sign when you're converting it to a decimal. Do 53 plus 8 divided by 9. Oops. And I keep forgetting, I keep wanting to hit equal, so you don't have to hit the equal sign. And you'll see those matched exactly. If we typed in the 53 plus 7 divided by 9,
Didn't match.
Didn't match. So sometimes they might have a match and you'll have to convert it to see, did this actually work? So like I said, it's a pretty good idea to get comfortable with this calculator so that when you use it on the test, you can use it as effectively as possible. Okay. So this is one of the free response questions where you're supposed to write out your work. I've been trying to find out, like I said, they've changed the OGT and now it's only going to be online. So I don't know how you're going to do these types of problems anymore. I don't know if you're going to have to actually type out your work, if they'll have you draw with the mouse. I'm a little unsure of how it's going to work. So we'll still go through this problem, but I'm going to see if I can find out any more information about how's that going to change.
Do we take the test on paper or on computer?
It is on computer now. It used to be on paper, but they just made a change, which is why some of the testing dates are still up in the air. Amy's trying to get everything organized because now she has to find places with the computers that can provide testing.
Why would they change that on us in the middle of doing this?
Exactly.
The state of Ohio made these changes, not us. We have no control. They're phasing the OGT out so the class of 2017 is the last set of students who will ever have to take the OGT. So I think since they're phasing it out, they chose to move to computer for some reason, but I don't know. I don't know why they decide things like that.
Yeah, they're
Are they
hectic.
Are they putting something in the place of the OGT?
Newer students, not you guys, but newer students will have to take EOCs, which is end of course. They've got to take an algebra test specifically and then separately a geometry test. And they actually, the newer ones look a lot harder.
Oh, wow. My poor kids.
Yep. So, and maybe in a couple years, because Utah used to offer, well, not offer, Utah used to make you take a graduation test as well, and now that's not required at all. So probably in another 5 or 10 years, they'll be like, yeah, let's just phase this out completely. We'll see.
And I have one more question. Okay, how you do the classes for the math online. Now I have to do another OGT test also because I'm owed to do 2 before I can get my diploma. I think the other one's science.
Amy would know more about what tests you have to take specifically. I'm the math teacher, so I only know this is what you have to do for the math OGT. So you would want to talk to Amy about that. Maybe send her an email. It's amy.wright@graduationalliance.com.
Yeah, I think I have her in my email already.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little input on the science. I didn't have to take it. It wasn't required, but it was very easy. I took it for fun.
Oh, okay.
Most science tests, aren't they usually a lot of like reading graphs?
Yeah, science is normally easy. It's the math that I'm going to be stumped on a little bit.
Yep. Okay. So let's do this problem. Carmilla has a coupon that allows her to buy 1 pair of shorts at the regular price and get a second pair at half the regular price. So for 1 at regular price, second at half price.
So half off.
Yep. The shorts are $2.50 per pair. When Carmilla arrives at the store, she finds that the shorts are on sale for 30% off the regular price. The sale does not allow coupons to be used on the discounted items. In your answer document, explain whether 2 pairs of shorts would cost less by using the coupon or by buying 2 pairs of shorts at the sale price. Provide mathematical calculations and or reasoning to support your answer. So again, I'm not sure how they're going to change this answer document part since it's only online now. But it still tells you what you need to answer, whether it would cost less by using the coupon or by buying 2 pairs at the sale price. So often when they have these multiple paragraphs, you kind of look at it 1 paragraph at a time. This is basically question 1. So we want first pair of shorts and we need that cost. And we want the second pair of shorts and we need that cost. So from the first paragraph, how much is the first pair of shorts if it's just at the regular price?
It'd be 25.
25.50. It's just the price they told you. So the second one is half off. How are we going to find half? What does the word half ask us to do?
Divide.
Divide, specifically by what number?
30%.
The 30%'s later, and I think I heard Kelly say by 2. Half off?
$12.75.
Yep. Half means divide by 2, and $12.25 is correct. We do $25.50 divided by 2. Oh, sorry, $12.75. I must have heard you wrong.
Yes.
Yeah.
75. So then how do we find the total?
Then you have to times it by the 30%.
The 30% is almost like a whole separate situation.
Okay.
It's an if-then, like if I do it this way, it's going to cost this much. If I do it the 30% way, it's going to cost this much. Right now, we're looking only at the first paragraph, and we want to know, if I buy those 2 shorts, how much will it cost me if I have that coupon? So if we have 1 pair for $25.50 and 1 pair for $12.75, what's the total I'm going to have to pay for both of those shorts?
38.
38 some 38
$25.
$38.25, and we can always type it into a calculator too. We add those together. So that's the price for the first situation. Now is where the 30% comes into play. Now we say, the second situation, if I did it this other way instead, is if I find how much 30% off is going to be. So how do I find 30% off the regular price?
You have to turn the 30% into a decimal. I know that.
Mm-hmm. How do we do?
0.030, I'm pretty sure.
I think you have an extra
Or is that
zero.
Too much. Yeah, 0.30.
0.30. If you don't remember, you can do 30 divided by 100, and that'll give you the correct decimal. So then the regular price multiplied by that will tell you 30% off. Oh, let me fix that and do the 0.30. Okay, now that doesn't tell you the cost of the shorts. That $77.65 is how much you take off. The word off is key here. So $765, if that's how much you take off, how do we find the actual cost of the shorts?
You're going to have to take the actual cost, which is $25.50, and then I don't know if you would subtract.
What do you think, Kelly? Subtract or divide?
Multiply it.
You think multiply it, you said?
I think so. You the 25.50 times 0.30.
So we do that step. 2550 times 0.30, which is here on the calculator, and that gives us 765. But what do we do with the 2550 and the 765?
Yeah, you
I'm
subtract them.
assuming minus, subtract.
Minus. You take it away. Off. The word off means to subtract.
That's it.
Yeah, because you're not going to be paying that $765 from the $25.50, so you subtract it.
Yep. So $17.85, that's the cost of one pair of shorts. How do I find two pairs of shorts?
Times it by 2.
Times it by 2. You could also have done $17.85 $17.85 plus $17.85. Couple options this time. Nope.
But it'd be easier to times by 2.
Yeah. So $35.70.
So then the 30% off would be better.
Yes. So if they do have you still do these free response type questions, you actually want to write out all the work. You want to show the first pair of shorts was $25.50, the second is $12.75, the total is $38.25. And then you want to make a final statement. Oh, sorry. I was trying to erase the email down here so I could write the final statement. So you want to make sure you answer the question and you want to write it in words. So you said the second option is going to be cheaper. It is cheaper to buy these shorts. For 30% off. Sorry, I wrote that backwards.
I've seen that.
It's hard for me to talk and think and type at the same time. So you want to make some sort of statement that you know which option is cheaper. Don't just assume. And if you want to get even more specific, you could explain because
I was assuming that the 30% off would be cheaper because before we even did the problem.
Yeah. And you can probably get a general idea of what it's going to be, but without the supporting steps, you're not going to get very many points. A problem like this, they usually give you kind of levels of points. You know, if you have a little bit, they'll give you 1 point. If you have the whole thing, 2. Sometimes they're up to like 4 points. It depends on the complexity of the question. So just make sure you make that final statement, though, of I know which one is cheaper, because they're looking for that reasoning.
Okay.
Ah, I keep trying to underline things and moving things around instead. And it can help, you notice how I just kept clicking below, can help to keep your calculations in case you need to look back at something. If you don't like doing that, then you can just exit out of these by clicking the X and typing your work in that first box again. There is actually a good percent feature on this as well if you want it. Sometimes it might get more complicated to do this, but if you go to functions and you go to miscellaneous, there's a percent button. So you can type in 30% of 2550 and it'll pop that out. So if you're ever unsure, you're like, I'm not sure I'm going to write out the correct decimal, should it be 0.3 or 0.03? You could use this percent feature instead on this calculator under functions and then miscellaneous. Now, I thought there was a picture in this one. Snap. I thought I had a picture here. I don't know why it disappeared. It was a pie chart, and I do remember different types of position. I'm pretty sure the physicians and dentists were 15%. And that's the only part we need. So sorry that the correct picture is not here. And dentists. Okay. So another percent problem. Central Health Center employs 360 individuals. Now, since this is online, they may have a feature where you can highlight. They may not. If you can highlight the key stuff. Highlight the 360 individuals. The graph shows the different types of positions at Central Health Center. There was other things like doctors and like physical therapists. I don't remember exactly. I just remember the one we need. Approximately 48% of the physicians and dentists employed by Central Health Center are women. How many of the physicians and dentists are women? So this is when we're going to have to do a percent and then another percent. We're going to have to do it twice. So it said 360 individuals total. This is all the employees. So our first step is just to figure out how many physicians and dentists are there total. So to use this 15%. So how are we going to find that 15% of the 360?
Divide.
Not divide. Well, I guess it depends on what you're saying. Divide by what?
Divide by the 360.
So we want to still convert, it was kind of like the shorts problem. How did we convert that 30% to a decimal?
0.30.
It was 0.30, but now we're using 15%. So what's the decimal for 15%?
0.15.
0.15. So instead of dividing, we actually want to multiply. If we do 360 times 0.15, that tells us there are 54 physicians and dentists. Again, if you want to use that percent feature instead, you can say, I want 15, you have to click in front first, 15% of 360, and it gives you the same number. Either way you do it, gets the same number. So now we take the 54 because we want to know 48% of physicians and dentists. So what do we do to the 48% before we can put it into the calculator?
Turn it into a decimal also.
And what's that decimal?
It'd be 0.48.
0.48. And then we do the same thing, but now with our new number, 54 times 0.48. And our number's close, but what's our closest answer? We have to round.
It'd be the 26.
Yep. You gotta have that approximately again. So approximately means it'll be close, but might be a little off. So I included this problem because we're going to use the graphing portion of the calculator now. You've seen a lot of calculations. If we get some variables involved, and this is just random stuff I'm typing, nothing to do with the problem yet. If you have variables involved, you can actually make pictures. You can get graphs of equations. So sometimes we can actually even use this. So having a graphing feature on this is actually really great. You've never had a graphing feature before. The other calculator couldn't graph. So Ronnie and Kelsey bought the same type of flowers from a florist. Ronnie bought 5 roses, so these are Ronnie, and 2 carnations, and was charged $17.85 before tax. So Kelsey, I'm going to use a different color, different information. Kelsey purchased 1 rose and 6 carnations and was charged $12.25 before tax. So when I typed something in with the equation, it had an x and a y. Right now we don't have any variables at all. We're going to have to replace some of this with variables so that we can actually have something to type in. And our ultimate goal is to find how much did the florist charge for 1 carnation before tax. So Ronnie bought 5 roses. If it gives you an item, we can replace that with a variable.
Make it an R.
So normally we would use like an R, but this calculator is very picky and only allows X's and Y's. So instead of R, we're going to have to pick X or Y. So 5X. And then the word and literally means to add. You're adding the next amount of 2 carnations. Now carnations is different. We said roses was X. Carnation needs a different letter. And this is where, this is where we have to use Y. And how much should that equal total? They gave us a total amount.
7. But then you're going to have to do 7XY.
Well, it equals, sorry,
Oh,
so
times.
not the addition of the carnations and roses. It in the sentence told you a total amount that you're charged.
Okay,
How much were you charged? Yep.
Yeah, 1785.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually can't combine an X and a Y. I couldn't say 7XY because when you're adding, you can't add. It's like saying you have $5 and 2 pesos. You can't have $7 pesos. That's not an actual amount. They're 2 different things. So these always have to remain separate. Okay, so now we're going to use the Kelsey sentence to write a second equation. Kelsey purchased 1 rose. What letter did we use for rose?
It was X.
X, 1X. And then 6 carnations. What letter do we use for carnations?
Y.
And then how much was she charged for the roses and carnations?
$12.25.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to type both those in. We don't have to do a single thing to them. We just say 5x plus 2y equals 1785. We're going to actually use the equal sign this time. And then 1x plus 6y equals 1225. And it'll bring up an actual picture. And you'll notice these 2 lines are crossing. That crossing spot, you can actually click on it and it'll stay up. And this is a coordinate, 2.95 comma 1.55. I'm going to write this on the other page, 2.95, 1.55. So variable-wise, when you have a coordinate, the first coordinate is always the x values. Second is always the y value. This is important to know because it asks you for the price of one carnation. Is carnation going to be the x value or the y value?
It's going to be the y value.
The y value. We called it the letter y. We said carnations are y's. So this is our answer. So this one, it's kind of hard to figure out how to set up the equation, but once you've set it up and you typed it in, it's literally just looking at, well, where do these cross, and getting your answer from that.
Well, any person before doing all that would think, let's just do 1785 times how many roses, and then 1225 times how many carnations.
Yeah. Some of these questions are not how you would actually interact with it in real life.
Right.
Okay, so next question. The graph shows the percent of total votes cast for each of the 4 candidates in the Anderson City Council election. So percent of the total. All these numbers on this side are actually percents.
So then we have to guess again.
Yeah, we're going to have to kind of guess again. So the question says, if 2,542 people voted in this election, about how many votes did Lango receive? So specifically when we make our guess, we're guessing for Lango. So what percent is Lango at?
Looks a little bit above the 15, so maybe 17.
17. And usually the numbers are so far apart, it's not going to be hard. Even though we guessed 17, even if you guessed 18 maybe, you're probably going to still get close enough. So let's only use the calculator this time. Instead of converting it to a decimal, I'm going to get rid of this stuff. Let's go to that calculator function that says, so we want to be in miscellaneous, and we go to the percent button. We want to find 17% of the 2,542 people. So 432.14.
That's small.
Yep. 432 people voted for Lango. It's a little small, but what's the closest answer?
I'd say C.
C is the closest.
I mean, it's like so much off, but
yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. When you do these estimations, depending on what you estimate, you might be closer or further off. Let's say we had picked 18 instead. So let's use that percent feature and do 18% of the 2,542. Now we're at 457. Now we're pretty darn close. So
yeah.
these
18.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, since you're estimating, as long as you're pretty close, that's still the correct answer. We still got the right answer with 17%. You just can't be, you know, if we said this was only 10%, obviously that's just not reading the graph accurately.
What if we did 19? Would it be the exact then?
I think 19 will take it a little over, but let's check.
Mommy! He's a ninja like me. He jumped over the fence.
So 19 takes us up to 482, so now we're a little above.
Yeah,
but we're
too much.
Yep. So still nowhere near the 915 though. Okay. So this one I wanted to show you how to plug in scientific notation. You'll notice this. So since we're trying to figure out how to use this new calculator, I wanted that feature involved. Earth has a surface area of 1.97 times 10 to the 8th square miles. A new planet has a surface area 13 times the surface area of Earth. What is the surface area of the new planet?
Looks like multiplication you're going to be doing for both.
Exactly. Since it says the word times, that means multiply. So when you type in this scientific notation, 1.97 times 10 to the 8th, that's what we need to learn to do on the calculator. So you type in the 1.97. We don't have the X multiply. I guess the button says X, but when you hit it, it's going to put the dot, and then 10 raised to the 8th. You'll type in the 10, and you'll see this A with a little B above it. You click that, and it takes you above, and you type in the 8. Before you can type the times 13, click to the right again. Otherwise, it keeps you up there. If I put times 13, it will keep it up above, which is not correct. You have to click to the right and hit times 13. And the calculator, if it's a big enough number, actually just leaves it in scientific notation for you. 2.561 times 10 to the 9th. We didn't really have to do anything other than know how do we plug it into the calculator. So what's our correct answer? D is correct. And even though they didn't write the 2.561, it's the only one with 10 to the 9th. So they just chose to round it off at a different place. So if we had two scientific notation numbers to type in, I'm just going to make up random ones just to show you. 1.46 times 10 to the 3rd times, let's say we have 2.7 times 10 to the 6th. You would just use that AB button twice. When you get 10 to the 6th, you have to hit this AB button to get it up to the 6th. For 10 to the 3rd, you have to hit AB button before you type in the 3. But again, it'll just do all the work for you, which is the advantage of this calculator. Oh, that was the last question I had prepared, I guess. I ran out of questions. Is there anything you want to see again on the calculator since we have a little extra time?
No, where did you say the calculator is at?
You can go to www.desmos.com. I'll also send a link out in with a Remind 101 text so that everyone has access. And then you just hit Start Graphing. Now the main Desmos calculator is only a little bit different. It has almost everything the same. This one, if you go to this instead of the link I send, it has a few functions taken out. On the test, they didn't want stuff you didn't need to ever use, so they took out some of this that you won't see on the link I send. But I mean, it basically works the same. Any other questions?
No.
Yeah, when you did the scientific number, the AB button.
Yes.
What button do you have to click to go to the right to put it back down instead of being on the top?
You can either literally click to the right with your mouse.
Oh, okay.
5. So you could literally click over here with the mouse. I'm left clicking with the mouse. Or you'll see down here there's a left and right arrow button. You can click the right arrow button and that'll do the same thing.
Okay.
And it's the same thing when you do the divide. If we have 10 divided by 15, it stays on the bottom. Let's say I want to add 6. If I put plus, it's going to keep it on the bottom unless I either left click on the mouse to the right or unless I click the right arrow and then plus 6. And you can backspace. Sometimes it's hard because I'm using my keyboard. There is a backspace button here. You can erase stuff with this. Or on your keyboard, you can literally hit backspace and it'll just erase what you've written.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll stop here for today then. We'll have another session next week at the same time. Thanks for being here today, guys. I really appreciate your participation and just showing up so that hopefully we can get you some help before you have to take the OGTs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.